We're continuing our Dispatch from LA series on In Her Words. Episode 3 is a conversation with Team Downey, Susan Downey and Amanda Burrell, and our moderator is Linda Grasso of Ventura Boulevard magazine. These women share what it means to produce films, series, and even podcasts in this ever-changing entertainment landscape. We hope you enjoy.
Susan is a prolific TV and film producer and action adventures for her works genres. Team Downey is currently gearing up for the April 14 premiere of the HBO A24 limited series The Sympathizer, which Susan is executive producing. In the series adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, Robert Downey Jr. plays an impressive 4 supporting characters. So interesting. She is also executive producing Netflix Emmy Award-winning series Sweet Tooth, set to premiere its 3rd and final season this year, and she executive produced both seasons of HBO's Emmy-nominated series Perry Mason. On the film side, Susan is producing the crime thriller Play Dirty for Amazon MGM Studios, starring Mark Wahlberg. The film reunites Susan with director Shane Black after their cult classic Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I remember that. She has also segued into podcasting, executive producing the award-winning series The Sunshine Place, which premiered to an unheard of 12-day consecutive run at #1 on the Apple Podcast chart. Susan, thanks for being here. Thank you. We also have Linda Burrell, who is president of Team Downey. Her career began by working in the New York independent film world at Green Street Films. In 2011, she moved to Team Downey as Vice President Features. After working in development on several high-profile projects, including an adaptation of Jesse Armstrong's Black Mirror episode, Entire History of You, she set her sights on building Team Downey's presence in the TV space. Elevated to president of Team Downey in 2017, Amanda is currently executive producing 3 series, The Sympathizer, Sweet Tooth, and Perry Mason. She is also executive producing the crime thriller series Helltown and the TV adaptation of Samantha Downing's novel For Your Own Good with Berlanti Productions. Goodness gracious, you all are busy. Thanks for being here.
We have like 10 minutes left in the panel.
I'm sorry, what really swayed me is you both have kids. And I just like, how do you guys manage that? It must be a very busy, active life.
Well, what we were saying backstage is we thrive in the chaos, which I think is part of the job. I think it has to be kind of swirling and energetic and inspiring, so it's kind of all in the mix.
Yeah. Susan says she manages it because she gets up early morning.
Yeah, I love the early morning, the 5 a.m. to 6 something before anyone else is there. It's like me, a coffee, and a cat, and my iPad, like running shit, you know? No, it is chaotic, but you know, obviously, given who I'm married to, our life, personal and professional, is completely intertwined. So when you ask, we both paused if you realize, because we don't know any better, we don't know any different. So just do it, and if you love it, it doesn't feel, well, sometimes it does.
I want to start by having you guys set the landscape. I mean, years ago, it was kind of like, you know, drawing accidents between TV review and film, and film was sort of this prestigious venue, and that's where the more compelling, expensive, high-budget projects were. Gosh, streaming has changed all that. There are so many platforms, and the content is just as compelling and highbrow in some cases. Set the stage for me, for us.
So when I started my career 27 years ago, and I was working at Silver Pictures. Well, I worked at another company first that did some really fun kind of genre movies and stuff, and then I went over and I did this like long tenure at Silver Pictures. And at that time, I was really focused on features. And to your point, when they eventually did a television division, they brought in someone. I had nothing to do with it, all that. And then Robert and I started our company, and because the company I'd been at had a deal with Warner's, I knew them, they gave us a deal. So Robert and I had this deal with Warner Brothers. Part of the deal, they call it a 360 deal, meaning you're doing both film and television for them. So we had this template deal for television. We were like, yeah, whatever, we're never gonna, like, you know, it wasn't where our focus was. But we were developing Perry Mason as a feature with Warner Brothers, and it just wasn't finding its footing as a feature They had done another movie that I probably shouldn't name the title, Gangster Squad, which I didn't care for what they did with the genre, with the time period, and I was a little afraid they were going to push us towards that. We wanted something that just felt more grounded, more real, more adult.
They wanted you adventized. And it's actually, we just wanted to tell a good story.
That is an excellent point. And so at that time, what we did was we shifted it over to HBO, which was all obviously, under the same parent company, and decided, and that was at the moment, this was many, many years ago now, a decade ago, and that was at a moment where the concept of limited series, and it's all been cyclical since then, they've gone up and down and in and out of favor, and it was really in favor, the idea of being able to tell kind of these movies that, quite frankly, I grew up watching, loving, seeing win Academy Awards, that hadn't been in favor, that weren't doing well in the box office. And so it was finding a new life in this long-form television. And that really marked a shift for our company. Now, Amanda was already working there and had already seen an opportunity that was being untapped at the company in the television space. But I feel like it was really Perry that brought us in there. And then after that is when the streaming stuff started kicking in. Like, that wasn't even a big thing at that point. You want to pick up?
No, it was, I think, I started in the indie film world in New York, and it was a very different time, it was a very different place, it was making indie movies and signing them internationally, foreign sales and all this stuff. And then when I came to Team Downey, I was like, oh great, I'm gonna make studio movies, and they did Sherlock, and Sherlock 2 premiere, I'm like, wow. And then you get into those spaces, which were definitely in transition, and they were like, we're not gonna make a lot. It was already starting. And for me, it was like, where am I going to take all of these writers and directors and just energy that I love about filmmaking and put it into a place where we can actually make something? And it was in television. So Perry Mason, for sure. Sweet Tooth was really a long journey. This guy Jim Mickle, who had been a little horror filmmaker in New York that I knew. He wanted to write the series, and we kind of brought him over, and we were at Hulu, and then we were at Netflix, and now it's really successful. So it was kind of like, it felt like there was a shift in time, and we just seized it.
Yeah. So you guys take us through the process. You get a script, and you love it. What are the components that you look at in determining whether it should be a TV series or a feature film?
Oh, well, let me back up. We aren't getting scripts. We start with source material typically, so it's an article, it's a book, it's an idea. It's an idea. It's a graphic novel, it's that kind of thing. It's very rare, it's not impossible, very rare that you're actually getting a finished script from someone.
More like a treatment you'll get, like that.
If even, it's usually honestly.
If it's a script, it's already in the form of television or feature.
Yeah, exactly, so you're not having to decide. So if you're looking at just the raw material, which honestly is the most important thing as a producer, is have good material, keep seeking good material. And you look at the story and you're kind of having to ask yourselves a lot of questions. You're saying, okay, who's the audience for this? What's the vibe of this going to be? What is the story we want to tell? What is the conversation beyond the story, beyond the narrative that we want people to be having? And oftentimes as you start to answer those things, you'll understand how much time you want to tell the story. Because, there are things that really dictate a 3-act structure and therefore make sense as a feature. There are other things that you want to tell longer form, so it's a limited series, or it's probably not going to find a theatrical audience these days. Again, that's shifting too because of streaming and all of that. But to us, I feel like we're rarely struggling. We don't struggle to figure out where it should land.
I think what we talk a lot about is in features, you're creating catharsis. You want to get someone to have a feeling by the end and really land it. With television, it's about the world and kind of all of these different characters that get pretty an expansive experience. And so I think that's where it's do we feel like the story needs to be expanded to television? Or do we feel like we need to put a finer point on, so it's featured?
So this is a real general broad brush question, but what are streamers looking for today? And do you, I know. What day is it? It's Wednesday. Well, that's tomorrow. But I have, you're out and about. You get to know
For sure. Your joke is the complete reality, which is whatever we say now may not matter in a couple months, and if the regimes are changing, everything's consolidating, they're lessening what they're doing, yet they need more content, blah, blah, blah. So I think in terms of the streamers from a television standpoint, we can talk about first is a lot of them, and it's not true for all, but a lot of them are looking for an international play. You know, how can this travel internationally? So if it's too specifically a domestic story, then they may not be interested. If it's too expensive per episode, they may not be interested. That's a big one these days. The times of, you know, call it 10 million plus an episode, just one episode, are not so often these days. So those are things that so it's international and it's you know, for a budget. I
do think that some people are saying more things now about kind of feel-good family, like complicated family, but things that where the audience doesn't feel.
Unless you're talking to Amazon. If you're talking to Amazon,
they're
they
like
want
Jack Reacher or Jack.
Yeah,
So that just must make it so challenging for you guys. You're embarking on a project, you're passionate about it, and yet you have no idea who the buyer's going to be when push comes to shove.
We don't really let them. We honestly, we're like, if we're passionate, we're gonna get behind it with such full force that we'll will it. Well, nobody wanted I don't know. Nobody wanted a Dear Boy show. Like everybody was like, "What is that?" And then you know what? Like, there's an audience. If we believe in our heart that there's an audience that wants it, we can figure out the argument to these networks, who all they just want is someone else to tell them a little bit what people want. So I don't know.
And because we're not agents who are like, we need a bidding war, we're just like, we just need one. We just need one place to believe in it in the way that we do. And that's, you know, often, and the part that's harder is not when you're first going out, because you can then look at the current landscape and say, okay, this is not likely an Apple show. I know everyone's going to tell us to go pitch it there, but whatever, it's not. But this could work at these 3 places, right? The harder part is when you then set it up somewhere and you work and you develop it, and you find a writer, you do a writer's room, you're ready to go, you've turned in, your pilot, and none of the executives are there anymore that you set it up with, and they had a mandate, and they had a retreat, and now they come back and
holidays.
And all of a sudden, yeah, we're actually not looking for that prestige project. You got something you can make for like 6 an episode that's like a bunch of dudes? Yeah.
And listening to that, it's just really hard to deal with because you're putting your heart and soul in these projects. I mean, I talk to you guys, you're so passionate about it. You're dedicating so much time to it, and then something completely out of your control happens, and you've got to maybe something's completely quashed. Yeah, maybe it's rejiggered, but it's a long game, guys. It's a long game. Like, we were just talking about a project that had a similar thing, and now we're breathing life into it in a different form. I actually think if the creative's good, if you have the right people passionate, you'll find it.
And by the way, it's like it's a metaphor for, I'm not trying to get all but like, it is a metaphor for life. You can't let the external forces stop things that you believe in, and everything's gonna change. And you wake up tomorrow, something's totally different. Whatever, you just have to know what your true north is. You have to know why you did something to begin with. And we often post-mortem on things too, where if something didn't set up, or if it did and then it kind of crashed and burned, we've had those things. You look at that too, and sometimes there's lessons in them, and sometimes it's like you can't control everything.
But also then you got to create a relationship out of it with the writer. You could do something else. Like everything, work begets work. We always say that. No matter what, the process is going to find a way.
So I asked you guys what streamers. I asked you guys what streamers are looking for. What is Team Downey looking for? And if that doesn't resonate with you, what's your dream project? What are you thinking? Oh gosh, Susan or Amanda, I'm out there. I still want to do this story someday, or something like this, or I haven't done this genre.
You like weird stuff?
Yeah,
so it's just challenging, really hard.
A little left of center. I mean, we're pretty genre agnostic, and people do ask that, and it's hard to distill, but I know that we love things that have complicated characters at the center, but ultimately can be told in a way that's very commercial. While we love and respect and watch small indie type movies, and again, that's where Amanda got her start, that's not our world. I leave that to people whose hands it is much better in. We like things that are going to find an audience, but the last thing we want to do is something that feels like a straightforward, obvious programmer. It has to, so the next thing, Robert always says, like, whatever his favorite project is the next project. And it's because we're always looking for that new challenge. And we say if there isn't a couple times during the process, this could be the development, this could be the production or post-production, where we're, we have to be looking at each other and going, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? Like, what are we doing? Is this gonna work? And if you're not asking yourself that, then you're probably not trying to break new ground or do something you haven't done before. And look, there's comfort and safety, and that's why people do sequels, and we've done that too, give the audience what they want, but I think we're all at a phase in our career, certainly Robert is, where it's like we're looking for the new challenges to keep it exciting. So I know that's sort of a broad answer, but we know when we read something or see something because you're like, wow, there's something really kind of wacky here that we want to dig into.
I know you're really excited about the debut of the Sympathizer. What was it about that project that made you want to get involved? And share a little bit about it. I mean, Robert playing 4 characters, wow.
So that came to us, we were very lucky to, it already had Cartoon Week involved, who we belonged in the hands of, and were inspired by A24, came to us, we had a relationship with them and wanted to work with them. And then we read the book and we're like, this is crazy. And then Robert doing 4 characters, it felt like a real challenge for us all. So we were like, we want to do it at HBO, we love working with them, we brought it to them, and they totally got it. Which, it's a tough one to get, but they totally got it. And yeah, we cannot wait for audiences to see it. It's totally wacky.
There was also something really appealing to us to try and tell a story or be part of telling a story that is from a completely different point of view.
Yes.
Amanda wasn't born even during the Fall Saigon. I was like not even 2. And so all the things I learned about the Vietnam War through the history books, through documentary, through films, and
It's America's loss.
Yeah.
It was all about that.
yeah, it was the American side of things and perspective, and what Viet's book did is it really dimensionalized the situation, the fallout of it, and it put an incredibly complicated character who was also struggling with identity at the center of it. And it enabled us not only to work with an incredible international group of people, both in front of and behind the camera, but it challenged us to tell a story from a different point of view than what had been maybe ingrained in us, and that was really exciting.
Well, and also it's a spy thriller. That's the other thing. It's like it's illustrative of the commercial engine is there. It's a spy thriller at its core, but we're telling it from a completely different lens. And I think that's the kind of stuff. Genre with that different lens. Really.
And it was a complex shoot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we got to shoot in LA, which is nice. Yeah. We did shoot a lot of it in Los Angeles. And a lot of our crew from Perry Mason, who we love dearly, our makeup, hair, we got to put a lot of people that really were incredible artists. And then we got to shoot in Thailand, which was, we really wanted to shoot in Vietnam, we were not able to do it, but in Thailand it was just, it was awesome. And those crews are incredible.
So I also understand you executive produced The Sunshine Place, which I guess was, I just listened to a couple episodes. There's about a place that was originally touted as for drug rehab, but then it became like a cult, a dangerous cult. Talk to us about the podcast space and how that project came about.
Yeah. Well, so as everybody knows, podcasting became a big thing in the last bunch of years, and we had, a sit down with our agents, and they're like telling us how we got to use it as an incubator for other things, and we're just like, okay, that seems like a lot of work. Like, is this going to pay off? But then what happened was this great guy who I'd met when he was an executive over at Focus, and Josh McLaughlin, who I'd remained friends with, we'd always wanted to find things together, brought me this article about Synanon. And it was very, it was just very synchronistic because years ago, Robert had a concept for a television show that we actually set up at Showtime that was completely fictitious, but it was TC83 is what it was called, and it was about a therapeutic community in Venice, California in 1983, and it was completely inspired by Synanon because he knew all about the story of it. And Josh had no idea, so when he brought it to me, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, we know this. And we decided to enter into that space with him and explore it, and we had such a good time doing it because I think there was a very smart, it wasn't my idea, but it was a great idea, to Kelly's first person accounts. It just kind of evolved organically. And from that, we did the first season. There's going to be a second one, which we haven't announced, so I'm sure I shouldn't have said that. And we are also actually taking it and are working with a writer, and he has a take on it as a feature, which is kind of prove that the agents were probably right, and it was an incubator for something else. So, you know, but it was a lot of fun because what's nice about that space is you don't have to know what you're trying to say yet. You just have to know you're in an interesting arena. And you can kind of get in there and it's investigative and you're sniffing around, you're figuring out what is the narrative once you're putting all the pieces together. Whereas you really can't take that flyer if you're going to try and set something up or develop something as a feature or as a television show. So, yeah.
Okay, now kind of a fun question. What is the absolute best thing about your jobs? Amanda, you go first. What do you love about it? It's really hard. I love my job. I really love so many things about it. I think the thing I love the most is the travel and the people that you meet along the way and like these intense, crazy, all-nighter experiences with the crew, and you're bonded for life and you connect so deeply. And the writer, like just having that intense connection with people, I think is the real gift. How about you, Susan?
It's similar. I kind of knew what I wanted to do starting when I was like 11 years old. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be making movies. I used to do like commercials and print work and stuff in Chicago where I grew up, like in front of the camera. I never wanted to be in front of the camera like as I grew up, but I was like, what are these people doing? Like all the people behind the camera were so much more interesting than anything I had to do looking at the cereal box and being like, oh. And so I became obsessed with that world, and that, like, and I had a whole file folder on like, you know, Jodie Foster and other female directors and like making movies, and I was like, I'm laser focused and I'm gonna like go to USC and I'm gonna do, and it worked. And like, so it's like I get to live my dream. I get to be on sets. I get to do creative things, but also kind of strategic things at the same time. And as Amanda said, you meet the most wonderfully insane group of people in this circus every day that we get to do this. It's such a blessing to get to do this job, and you get inspired by what people are able to do. And the great thing about this industry is that there are so many potential jobs and ways in. So whatever you think one thinks they're going to do, it doesn't necessarily where you have to A, enter, or B, land. But we get to make movies and TV and unscripted and scripted and podcasts. It's like stories. That's exactly. It's great. But I think it is. It's the people, but it's also just like I couldn't be at a desk every day. Like I would go nuts.
And you get a great outfit and go to the Oscars. I'm sorry. Now it's again. That's got to be really great. Amanda and Susan, thank you so much. So much.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.